Hello everyone, Marco Montemagno here, SMEs Mobile Strategies 2014, powered by Apps Builder, and today is our final day. So I'm a little bit sad, I'm a little bit thinking, gosh, it's over. And it was so much fun, and I really learned a lot of things. So I hope you learned as much as I did. It was a very interesting week, and we still have a couple of speakers that I want to introduce immediately. But first, let me say hi to Krista McLanders from Apps Builder here with me to chat with our guest and get questions and providing some inspiring tips. As always, hi Krista, how are you?
Hey Marco, I'm good, I'm good. Like you were saying, it's our last day. I can't even believe it. The time has just flown right by, and we've been learning so much. But yeah, we still do have some more speakers, so get your pens and paper out, guys. We've got lots of great tips.
Fantastic. So we have here with us Bridget Randolph from Distilled, the fabulous Bridget Randolph from the fabulous Distilled, I would say. Hi Bridget, how are you?
Very kind of you. I'm great, thank you.
So
doing this.
I love you guys at Distilled, that's the truth. And so I'll try to be not so, every time that you say something, say, wow, that's good, why, you're amazing, guys. I'll try to be more neutral and try to focus on all the questions that could come. But just remember, for people that maybe are not familiar with Distilled, Distilled, based in London, one of the top SEO, I would say, digital marketing agency, media agency. You organized this Search Lab, this event, which is a great event. I really recommend everyone to go there, try to get a ticket to go there in October, is it?
Yes.
In October. End of October in London, and US edition in September.
Yes, in San Diego.
Very good, very good. All right, so what do we talk about today, Bridget?
Well, so today I want to talk a bit about mobile strategy for small businesses, because something that I hear a lot when I talk about mobile, and I show off like some exciting case study of Red Bull or someone, everyone goes, oh, but they have lots of money. I can't do that with my small little company that's a local business. So what I want to do today is just go through some steps you can take, even if you have a very limited budget, to make sure that you are mobile friendly, because the world is just becoming all about mobile now.
That's great. That's great. I love it. We have very small budgets, so I'm very interested in person. I was talking with Will Reynolds, great guy and a friend of Distilled. He is always at Search Love and always in touch with you guys. And it was funny because I asked him exactly this question. I say, Will, great, all the mobile stuff, but he was talking about the home screen, trying to be on home screen or on the smartphone. And I said, but how can I compete, with Google, Twitter, and all these guys? And he said, you know how he does, he speak very like, yeah, bro, man, I don't know, but let's think about that, So it's a very interesting topic. And all right, so Bridget, let's start, and we'll interrupt you only if we have a very specific question, or we try to keep questions at the end of the conversation. While you set up your slide to share, I want to say hi to all the people following the SMEs Mobile Strategies. Into the chat, you can talk with us and shout your question or your ideas or whatever you want. And yeah, let's start. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good to me. I'm gonna did this a minute ago, but now I'm struggling. Okay. Found it, guys. We're okay.
It's always like that. It's crazy, It's always like that. But I already told it during another session, but I want to repeat for people who's not familiar with Hangout. I was talking with Erin Bali, the founder of Udemy, very famous e-learning platform. And before doing the platform, they tried to do a live e-learning platform. So I said, why so difficult, really, to do the screen share during the Hangout on air? And he said, man, it's tough. It's really technical, not an easy problem to solve. You have so many drivers, webcam, audio, privacy issues. So the reason is that one. But then, I mean, in the end, the best people can make it. And I see Bridget did it with the slides that are on.
Yes, we've got there in the end. So, all right, I'm just gonna come in with a strong statement, which is mobile is huge, as you can see from the picture. And just to give you a sense of this, by the year 2017, it's projected that 85% of the world's population will have 3G coverage. So not just internet, but high-speed internet. And actually, there are even other things in the works, like this internet.org, which is an initiative from Facebook, which has as its mission to bring internet to 100% of the world in the near future. So it's just becoming bigger and bigger. And as the internet grows, so does mobile data usage. In the year 2012, mobile data usage was 12 times the size of the entire internet data usage in the year 2000, which always blows my mind. I've used this graphic in a few presentations, but every time I just sort of look at it and just
Crazy.
crazy. And just to add more to that, that was 12 times growth in 12 years. But in the next 6 years, we're going to see 12 times that growth again. So that's doubling the amount of growth as well, which means we're going to be more connected than ever. And it's exciting as marketers because it means you can reach people that you couldn't reach any other way. People who may not even have a desktop phone, or sorry, desktop device, but who can access the internet, can access your website on their phone. And because the mobile is becoming increasingly just another way that people use the internet, it's starting to become a multi-screen, device-agnostic world where, in a way, it doesn't matter what device you're on, or it shouldn't matter. But we'll come to that. So what does this mean for marketers? I've got some stats here. 25% of UK consumers have made a purchase using their mobile device, and 77% of smartphone users have researched a product or service on their phone, after which about half of them actually purchased the item in store. So it's not just driving online sales, it's driving offline as well. And what this means for us is that businesses really need to be mobile friendly. It's not just some nice add-on option anymore. But there's a problem, and the problem is that people often do it wrong. And even big brands can mess up. So I've got some examples here. Forbes, a classic thing of having pop-up ads, which Google's asked us not to do, and it's just annoying if you're using their site. This one, they've actually fixed it now. I don't know if it's because I talked about it so much. Maybe that's arrogance. Basically, Starbucks a couple years ago designed a brand new website, and it was beautiful and it was responsive, and you can see it's really, really appealing visually. And this is the desktop screen with a nice clear call to action to buy this coffee online. But as soon as you went on a mobile, the call to action disappeared because they had 80 or 90 reviews and videos and things that stacked on top of it, because that's how responsive design works. What they'd done is they decided that the sidebar was, being a sidebar normally wouldn't have very important information, so they prioritized the things that were in the main body of the page, and the buy button just disappeared. I checked it today just to see if it was still doing it, and they fixed it, so someone else must have pointed it out as well.
Or maybe on mobile they just didn't want to sell. You know, they said, okay, let's not sell it anymore. And no,
Maybe that would be short-sighted.
clearly, yeah, huge mistake, of course.
Yes, I would have told them off if they were my client. But even worse, some big brands don't do anything, and this is my pet peeve, Apple, who do not have a mobile website. Need to, and my answer is you're not Apple. But just to be serious about it for a minute, they don't need to, because they should really, but they don't have to in order to capture that business, because they have such strong brand awareness and such a high market share, and most of us don't have that luxury of being able to get away with poor practice. So yes, they're being bad because they're getting away with it, but we can't, so we have to be better. And only 70% of the top 20 UK retailers have a mobile-friendly website. So as you can imagine, there are obstacles. It's not easy. And therefore, small businesses are even less likely to have a mobile-friendly web presence at all. And there's two reasons I think this happens. One is they don't see the value. It's a fairly new thing, and people go, oh, it's a nice add-on. It's not important. It's not necessary. To which I point you to the statistic at the bottom of this slide, which says 71% of smartphone owners researched a product on their device, which they later bought. And it is easy enough to show the value of it. If you just do a quick Google search, you'll see loads and loads of statistics about just how big mobile is for online. And you can see here, even small businesses, 84% of small businesses who did undertake mobile marketing saw an increase.
Sorry, Bridget.
Yes.
I just lost your slides for a second, but I see you back now.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
But I see. Sorry, I always see the Apple slide.
Oh, is it moving? You still on Apple?
Let me see. Let me check. I still see only Apple. Yeah, I still see only Apple at the moment. So maybe because, possibility is that you said Apple, they were not behaving very good, and Steve Jobs did something from the heaven, and say, no. Now we stay on Apple's live for all the presentation. So can you try just to quit screen share and come back?
Yes, I'll do that.
Yeah, we try this. That's the option. So anyway, just to recap what you said so far is basically that there is a huge gap. This is something that during this week we really understood how big is this gap. Not only in UK, I would say all over. Yesterday we were talking with this guy O'Reilly author, and he wrote tons of books about mobile and all the tech stuff. And he said also, in US still, there is a huge gap. So it's not only in Europe, to be honest. All right, let's see how it goes.
Can you see this? Has the slide changed now?
I still see. I don't know if I'm just me that I'm totally. I'll ask the chat, but I see still the same. Can you try? Yeah. Also, Krista can see you. Can you try to just do like that? Do F5, close and re-enter in the session, so we see if we're more lucky.
Okay.
Okay. We'll wait for you.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I'll take the chance to speak 1 second with Krista, because it is like that. Krista, what do you think? If I think Apps Builder, is an international company, but also based in Italy, development is there. So, on the Italian market, I guess the gap is still huge over there.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of, small businesses are still lacking their mobile presence. And even in markets where you think it shouldn't be the case. We just recently did our poll with one poll, and we found out, 65% of small, medium businesses still don't have a mobile presence. That's in the UK, where we think the market is really, advanced and people are latching on to mobile already. So, then you can just kind of imagine maybe countries who are just now getting very digitalized,
Right, got it. Hey, Bridget, you back?
I'm back. Let's try this again.
Yeah, let's try again. I think it's good, it's Good Friday. I tell you this story. I was I hosted this television show on Sky News Italy for 7 years, and one episode they asked me to do a 20-minute show about the best videos of the year, okay? And I just had to show videos, basically. And I remember that for all the 20 minutes, you try to go a slideshow in your slides.
Yep, I've done that.
I still see, I don't know why, but I still see, I see your slides now, but in working mode.
Okay, so if I go back to slide mode.
Yeah, I go back in slide mode and we try to see if something works. Otherwise, we'll get it in the working mode, and it's fine if you don't have any particular thing to show. Yeah, try maybe to go from beginning or whatever.
Yeah. Is that going back to the beginning now?
No, I still see the working mode, but let's keep the working mode. Probably it works fine anyway, I think.
Sorry, guys.
No worry, no worry, no worry. I remember, amazing how for 20 minutes it was no video available. So on television you have to show 20 minutes of videos and no videos were there. So I had to describe with hands, like, oh, this video was very cool. He was doing this and this. So we can make
Oh,
it
no.
today. I'm sure, Bridget, we can. All right. Very good. So the last thing that you say was that Apple, they are very bad.
Yes,
Okay.
and we can't use them as an example because really they're an edge case. But even among the top 20 UK retailers, which I'm on a new slide now, so let me know if that's not showing up. Only 70% of the top UK retailers had a mobile-friendly website, and it's because there's a lot of obstacles in the way. And that's why small businesses are even less likely. There was an American survey, actually. You mentioned the OnePoll survey that, Krista, you did in the UK. I found a statistic from an American survey, but that showed roughly the same thing, that 60% of small businesses there had websites, but only about half of them were mobile friendly,
Yeah.
which is a tiny amount. So I think there's two reasons for why this happens. Firstly, I think sometimes small businesses don't see the value because they're always having to focus on where they're getting the most value. And sometimes it's easy to think mobile's just this fad, it's an extra thing to worry about, it's not that important. But actually it is easy enough to show the value of mobile marketing because all you have to do is a quick search for mobile marketing statistics, and you'll immediately see all sorts of stats like the ones I showed you at the beginning. So really, it seems more likely to me that with a lot of small businesses, they just don't know where to start. And so that's where I come in with this presentation. And as Mark has mentioned, I'm Bridget Randolph. I work at Distilled. And so what I want to talk about today is mobile strategy for small businesses and getting started with mobile. How are we doing with the slides? Is that all?
Very good. I
Coming
see
through?
perfectly now.
Okay. Good.
And by the way, congrats. I love slides with big fonts. That's
Mm.
I totally agree on this approach.
Well, I've stolen it from my colleague Hannah Smith, who gives amazing presentations, but she always likes the big fonts. So imitation is the best form of flattery.
Very good.
Right, so okay, so there's sort of 3 steps to the strategy that I'm going to show you today. The first is your website, the second is thinking about search and discovery, and the third is reaching out to your customers where they are. And we'll take each of them into a site. Your website is possibly the most important web presence that you have because it is where your online customers will primarily interact with you. And there's a statistic at the bottom of this slide that you can see. And I'm going to tweet out this deck at the end
Yeah.
of this session, so don't worry about links and things will be easy to access from the SlideShare link. But basically, there was a study that found 61% of mobile users who land on a site that is not mobile friendly are likely to leave and go to a competitor's site. So it is very important to make sure that you're able to cater to that. And there are 3 main approaches that you can take when you're thinking about making your website mobile friendly.
Okay.
Responsive design, which is what we were looking at in the Starbucks example, where it's exactly the same code, but all it does is it resizes things and moves them around the screen to make sure that it all fits at an appropriate size. So it takes like building blocks, that it takes them and restacks them based on this width of your screen. There's dynamic serving, which basically is when you serve a different page, so it's different HTML code, but you keep the same URL. And then there's something called a separate mobile subdomain, which is what we're probably most familiar with when we think about mobile websites, which is when you have m.domain.com or mobile.website.com, so on. So you should.
Sorry, Bridget, to interrupt you. The second approach that you say, okay, responsive is easy. It is just a way of to change the layout, and is the same content, is the same website, and just on mobile get rearranged in a different way. The second option is that you serve a different page. It means that if you coming from mobile, I give you one content. If you're coming from desktop, I give you another content. Or what do you mean?
Yes, so you would have two versions of the page, and the reason to do it this way is simply so that you only have the one set of URLs. It's like a separate site, but it's on a single version of the URL, so it always says www or whatever your website URL is, but it's showing mobile-friendly content to mobile users. It does it by detecting the user agent of the device and showing you the appropriate page.
Okay.
Um, so as ever, you should choose an approach based on your goals and your technical capabilities, and also your users' needs. So I wrote a best practice guide over on the Distilled site, which goes through a sort of flow chart to help you figure out which might be the best for you. So that might be a good place to start. But in general, if you have a small business and a small website, it's pretty straightforward. You should probably just go with responsive design. And the easiest way to do that is with a responsive template using a CMS like WordPress. This doesn't have to be expensive. These were some WordPress themes and theme providers which my colleagues recommended. There are loads of them out there, and as you can see, they're all showing up at under $100 to buy, so it's worth it. If you don't like WordPress for some reason, I don't understand. There's other providers as well. Squarespace and Wix are two that have been recommended to me, and again, they're quite inexpensive. So, simples, right? I like that.
Yeah. By the way, Wix, they're huge now. I think I
Yeah.
met the founder in Kiev a few months ago, and I think they did an IPO, or they really huge. They're getting really huge.
I keep seeing their ads on Facebook.
Yeah, they have
So
money now.
they've arrived. Yeah. Now, if you are saying to me still, but I can't afford that, it's okay. I'm skeptical, but it's okay. If you can't do anything else, at least make sure you do have a Facebook page and a Google Plus page because those are mobile friendly already. And you should start saving up for a mobile friendly website. It's not okay not to have it just because you're tight on money. But one final point I want to bring up is just that a mobile friendly website is not a strategy. That's just your starting point. That's just the basis that you need to have. And everything else goes forward because your customers are doing this in this sort of circular journey. So they're not just interacting with you on your website, they're interacting with you in different ways at each phase of this customer journey, which is why we need to talk about search and discovery. So search and discovery is all about how people find your website. So you might have the best mobile website in the world, but if no one sees it, that's no good. So the first thing we're going to talk about is mobile SEO, and also local search and social media. So with mobile SEO, if you have a responsive design and you've already optimized your site for desktop, you don't need to worry about it. You're set because it's the same code. If you can't use responsive design, if you've chosen to use one of the other options, dynamic serving is also pretty easy. You just have to avoid looking like you're cloaking. And so you do that by implementing a very HTTP header, very user agent. And what that does is it tells Google, I'm not showing different content just for the sake of it. I'm showing different content because this person's on a mobile device and I'm detecting their user agent. And the value of a dynamic serving approach is that it allows you to tweak the content a bit. So I have this link here to an article that talked about 73% of local mobile keyword rankings differed from their desktop counterparts because of variations in the keywords. That's something you used to be able to track more before they came out with the new keyword planner tool. But again, as a rule, that's something that would be more important for someone with a big site. If you're a small business with only a small number of pages and there's not a huge amount of content on them, you're not going to need to do anything complicated if you can stick with responsive. If you have separate URLs, if you've built a whole separate mobile site on a different subdomain, then there are several things you need to look at, and I'm not going to go into them all here, but if you are interested in that, you can see this blog post on Moz that I wrote that takes you through each of the sort of areas you need to think about for mobile SEO. Most of it's the same as normal SEO, but there are a few extra things you need to do to make sure that Google realizes it's a mobile site and not just another version of your site.
Bridget, it means that if you are lazy, you just go responsive and
Yeah.
you don't have to do anything else, right?
Yes.
Good. So I like that first option. I don't know why.
Yes. That's my favorite, if you can do it. I think it's trickier if you have a bigger, more complicated website than sometimes responsive, as we saw with the Starbucks example. Responsive may not be entirely as good as it could be. But yeah, keep it simple. That's my motto. So the next thing I want to just touch on is local search. Local search is really important for local businesses, for small businesses, and that means any business with a physical location or a location-based service area. So even if your business is a plumbing business and you visit your customers at their homes, you can set a service area in Google Maps, and that way they'll know that you are a local business. And basically, let's see. Yes, there we go. So this is the difference though between a desktop result for local. So this was a plumber search in London, and you see the list of names that have stars. Those are local results. So you can see that even there are some that are ranking above that, whereas on the mobile it's quite small. I'm sorry about that. But the first normal result comes all the way down where that yellow highlight is. So what you've got on a mobile is you've got ads at the top, which actually take up most of the screen, and then the first thing that you see when you scroll down is a map, followed by local listings, and you don't get to the top ranking. So that yellow mark is the #1 organic ranking that's not a local result. So it is very important. So there are several factors when you're looking at local search.
Can I interrupt you, Bridget? Sorry but just to help us, the people here in chat and watching this video to understand better. When you say local search, it means that you have to think about local search only if you are a pub or if you sell shoes, if you have a shop, or you should think about local search even if you are, you do a website that sell courses, or so you have nothing to do with local, or maybe you have, I don't know.
Local search is only for businesses that either have a physical shop, or you could have more than one shop, but it would be a physical location where you do business, so people visit you there. Or, so as you say, like a pub or a shoe shop or something, or a service provider for a local area, like a plumber, which is the example I used here. Local search is basically when you do a search in Google for something like plumber and they show you results for things like plumber in London. That's local search. So if you just have a service that's completely digital, it's all online, you're not going to rank for those searches anyway because people won't search for you in local terms. So you don't need to worry about it. It's only people who have a physical location or a service area.
Okay.
But if you do, I'll try not to spend too long on this. People can revisit the deck after if it's something. I've got links to other resources, but basically there's a few different factors to think about. So one is make sure that you do talk about your location on the website. So you can see here in the titles and the reviews, it says reviews of plumbers in London, trades in London, areas in London. They're sort of mentioning the location. You should get listed on local listings. These are different from the sort of bad SEO directories that we've all encountered, but these are relevant local business directories. So these are listings of local businesses. Google My Business is the most important one because that's the one that links up Google Maps, and that's the one that gets your information in there for local search results. But these other ones that I've listed here are also useful because the more of them you have listings in, the more strength that shows to Google. This is just a screenshot of Google My Business. It's brand new, really. It's only in the last month or two, I think, that it's come out like this. It used to be scattered across Google Plus and Google for Business and Google Places, which were 3 different things, and they've brought them all together. So for your perusal, I've included a link to the Small Business Guide to Google My Business, which should give you all the information you need about that. Another thing you can do is local link building. So you can find ways to get links from local sites rather than just generic sites or national sites. You can see here some examples like local blogs or government sites, local government like the Sheffield Council, or local news sites, Sheffield Telegraph. If there's things that you're doing that are local oriented and you can get mentioned in these websites, that will help with the local signals. And then very important thing is what's called NAP citations. These are sort of like links for local SEO in terms of ranking signals for Google. And what NAP stands for is name, address, and phone number. So this is anywhere that your business is mentioned with those three things. And in these, consistency is key. Consistency is the signal to Google that they all refer to the same business. So it's very important to make sure that anywhere your business is mentioned using those things, that it matches. And what you can do is use WhiteSpark's local citation finder tool. I think also, since I first did this presentation, Moz has a local tool as well, which I haven't really used. But I'm sure it's great. I've heard good things about it. But I mentioned this one because I know it's inexpensive and I'd heard good things about it. This will help you find all the places that your business is mentioned with these NAP citations, and you can make sure that it matches. You can also include images. Sorry about the working version here, but you get a sense of, see the Starbucks images that show the coffee cup in the outside of the store. And these can show up in Google Maps when people see your location on the map. And that just makes it that much more inviting for people. Finally, there are structured data if you're into schema and that sort of thing. There are things you can do like place and local business. You can use H-card markup, which I don't really know much about, but I've linked to someone who can tell you about it. And you can upload a KML file for Google Maps, which again is sort of like the XML file for sitemaps. Make sure you have your social profiles. Google Plus and Facebook both allow you to have that local mapping. Facebook does this now as well, where they've got Facebook local. I think it was only in the US last time I checked, but they were planning to roll it out, so it may be out now. And also reviews are very important for local search, which is why you'll see the star ratings in the local search results. So you want to get reviews on Yelp and Google My Business, again, are the two most important. But TripAdvisor, Yahoo Local, Foursquare, Zagat, these are all good places to have. It reinforces it. They're just like extra little signals. That's all I'm going to talk about on it right now. But if you want to learn more, this is a great place to start. David Mim has done a report where he's analyzed all the ranking factors that he sees as influencing local search results in 2013. So that's an incredibly valuable resource for anyone who wants to learn more about it.
Can I say, Bridget, that for local SEO is really hard job compared with let's say a business that is not local, necessarily local. Really is a tough job. Watching all the places, all the stuff you have to do is, or at least that's my perception. Not that it's easy to do SEO for any kind of other business, but I mean locally you have all these maps and images and stuff that, well.
I think so. I think it's hard work to set it up, but it's one of those things that you put in some work up front, you get it set up, and then you're ahead of most of your competitors who haven't got around to it yet.
Yeah.
Sneaky. So yeah, I think you're right. As with any of these things, there's a learning curve, especially at the beginning. Once it's set up, like once you've got your Google My Business set up, once you've got your different accounts set up, once you've got a system to encourage people to give you reviews, then it should start to be easier, because then it will sort of work itself most of the time, and you'll just need to check it every so often and make sure that it's still up to date.
Yeah.
Now you might ask me if this works, and I have a case study for you, which is from another agency called Target Local, which is run by Gareth Brown. They had a client called Coffee Corner, which they built a website for, and they made them a responsive site and optimized it for local. And he said they managed to get them to the top of page 1 within 6 weeks. This is starting from scratch. And that took their search traffic from 100 to just under 300 visitors per month, which may not sound huge, but it's tripled their traffic online. And they're also seeing visitors coming from the Yelp profile, which was set up. And he told me as well that they'd seen an increase in visits to the shop itself, some of which they thought was attributable to the increase in search traffic. So all good things, basically. Finally, social media is another area that's very important for search and discovery. And we've already seen social is important for local SEO. So we've talked about Google Plus and Facebook being important for local SEO. We've also talked about Google Plus and Facebook being good if you are in the process of building a mobile site and you need something that is mobile friendly to tide people over. But it's also a marketing channel in its own right. Because 4 out of every 5 people who use Facebook on a daily basis are accessing it on a mobile device on the app. The same is true of Twitter. It's 80% of Twitter daily users are on a phone. And social media is a great way for your mobile visitors to find and interact with you if you do it right. So the other thing to remember about social is it's not just part of the discovery process, it's also a way to maintain customer loyalty. You can, if you remember the little circle we had at the beginning that talks about discovery and then engagement and then purchase and then, did I get that backwards? Discovery, explore, purchase, and engagement. So engagement is that point after someone's bought from you once where you want to keep them in the circle, you want to keep them in the loop, keep them engaged, keep them loyal, and social is great for that.
Got
So
it.
the first thing you need to remember with social is it's about conversation, it's not about broadcast. One of the biggest mistakes people make, and even massive brands do this, is they treat it as their personal thing to talk about themselves. And I've got an example here of people who are quite good. There's some language warning in here, but the Dolphin Pub is a quirky little local pub. Have their Twitter account, and they had this conversation with a brand called Dewey Egberts UK, which is a coffee brand, and they had this whole discussion back and forth about who is Dewey Egberts, and then it just sort of went from there. And what was so entertaining about it, got them loads of coverage and links and things. But what was so interesting about it for people is it was brands interacting like normal people and not just shouting about, we opened a new store today, yay. Our profits are up 10%, yay, nobody cares. What my colleague Hannah mentioned earlier, she likes to talk about the dinner party test. So basically, if you were at a dinner party and you were talking about this, would people be really interested and enthused, or would they be glazing over? If you're talking about profits being up or something like that, or even just, what's your favorite treat for the summer? Like, that's a bit boring. But if you can engage and be human and be real and have conversation with people, with your customers, then people will be engaged and they'll enjoy it. And of course, you need a content plan, which is sort of all basic social media best practice. So how do we tie this into mobile? Really important thing that sometimes people forget is making sure all the content you share is mobile friendly. There's nothing worse than clicking a link on someone's Facebook feed or Twitter feed and not being able to see it properly because it's not made for mobile. YouTube's bad for that. Sometimes I click on videos on YouTube and they're like, this video is not available on mobile. And it's very frustrating, and I'm not going to share it. So you want to make sure that people are able to share your content, and if they're using a mobile device 80% of the time, then as you can see, it's huge to make it mobile friendly. Oh, we're getting there, guys. So you've got your mobile friendly website and you've made it easy for your mobile users to find you, right? So that's step 1. Step 2, now what? Well, now the fun part, which is now you get to go find them. Now you get to go reach out to them where they are instead of sitting around twiddling your thumbs waiting for them to come to you. You can bypass the search process altogether. There's 3 ways of this that I want to touch on today. There's other things you can do as well, but these are sort of the big ones. Apps, exclusive mobile content, and emails. So apps, do you need an app? Lots of people think they need an app and they don't. There are a huge amount of apps in the Apple Store and Google Play Store, and most of them don't ever make it into the top 10. I think I forget what year this is for. I think this was for 2012, but 7 iPhone apps earned 10% of the total revenue for iPhone in the App Store. So out of all those 900,000, only 7 together made 10% of the revenue. So that's how it works with it being so based on what's showing up in rankings. Um, so it's a tough world out there to have an app. Now there's a benefit to it, which is your app is a walled garden. If people go to your app, they're not searching, surfing Google, checking out your competitor's site when they get bored of yours. But first you need to be sure you need one, because it can be a drain on your resources. For a lot of small businesses, you probably don't. But I have some questions you can ask yourself. You can say, does this app add convenience to the process? Does it offer a unique value? Does it provide social value, like Facebook, for example? Does it offer incentives? If you get this app, do you get loyalty points or do you get extra special deals? Or does it entertain? So a game like Angry Birds is an entertaining app, and that's why people like it. If it doesn't do any of those things, you probably shouldn't build it. The one thing I would say is if your business model relies on getting lots of return traffic to your site, it may be worth investing in an app, um, because it removes that step of people having to search for you. And if they've come back a few times, they might also find it convenient, which is the top one up at the top of that list of 5 things. It's convenient to just go from the home screen. Um, But never fear, there are 2 types that you can do. The first is the kind we're familiar with mostly on iPhone and Android, those apps in the App Store. This is called a native app. There's also something called a web app, which is basically just when you skin a web page to be like an app, and people can add it to their phone's home screen, but you don't need to have a whole app platform. Um, I've got some pros and cons of each. The pros are with a native app that it's usually faster performance and a more specific functionality because it's purpose built for that platform. And you'll get App Store support, whereas the App Store isn't that keen on people submitting web apps to the App Store. The cons of a native app are it tends to be quite expensive to build, it's high maintenance, and there's a long approval process while the app stores decide whether they're happy with having it in their store. On the other hand, a web app can be cheaper, it can be easier to maintain, but because it is more like a web page, it's sort of one size fits all. You're not making one for iPhone and one for Android and one for Apple phone, or sorry, Windows phone. It can't be accessed offline because it is a web page. So sometimes with native apps, you can make them have offline functionality where people can use them even when they're not online. And you're probably not going to get App Store support for a web app. Here's just some tools that I found featured on Mashable that can be helpful for low budget creating an app. There's different types here. You can do the native or the web apps with this. So yeah, if you're interested, definitely check those out. Next thing that I want to look at quickly is exclusive mobile content. So this is the idea of making an incentive for your mobile visitors to interact with you on their mobile. Some ways that this might work. Oops, go down. Yes. So a loyalty app is an example of exclusive mobile content. Like my phone is with O2 and I have the O2 Moments app, and what that it does is it means I can log in and see if there's offers in the area near me for stores that have partnered with O2 to provide discounts to their customers. So I get special discounts that I wouldn't get anywhere else, even logging in online, I think, as far as I know. Maybe they've tricked me. But I think the idea is that by having the app, it reminds you to check in with them, and in return you get special offers. You can do something similar in an app context with push notifications and geo-targeting. So for example, if you're a coffee shop and you have customers who come in every day and are willing to download an app, you could make sure that if they are walking by the coffee shop, they get a little push notification saying, hey, if you come in, have a coffee with us, you'll get 10% off. And that can be really effective for encouraging people to purchase something they otherwise wouldn't. Obviously, it's more for low-cost items. It wouldn't work so well with a big-ticket, expensive item. And this is just related to the more general idea of giving mobile visitors exclusive offers um, just for doing things. But you don't even need an app for that. So one way you can do this is you can use check-in or coupon services like Foursquare, Facebook, Groupon, um, which you can provide rewards. For instance, that if you check in on Foursquare on your phone when you're at my coffee shop, I'll give you 10% off your next coffee. And the added benefit of using these check-in services that are social is that you get online visibility for your brand and you get social proof. So you get people whose friends are checking in at your coffee shop. Whereas with the app, um, if it's a self-contained loyalty app, it doesn't necessarily link up with anyone outside of the person that is using it. And speaking of Facebook and Foursquare, social media competitions are just a bonus thing. That's quite good. Not necessarily mobile specific, but as we saw before, social is heavily mobile driven. So it can be just a fun way to encourage people to engage with you on mobile. The last thing I want to touch on quickly in this section is emails, because 62% of emails are now opened on mobile devices, which means that email marketing, email marketing is mobile marketing. And too often people don't think about that when they're creating emails. So if you're doing email marketing, things to make sure you're doing, use mobile friendly email templates. That's very, very important. It makes a big difference to whether people will take the time to read your email and engage with any call to actions. And it's not as scary as it sounds. So I've got you some email providers lists here. MailChimp is very good. That's what we use at Distilled. Campaign Monitor is another one that I've heard good things about. As you can see, again, they're quite inexpensive. They offer you mobile-friendly templates ready to go. You just make your email in there and it'll be all ready for you. And if you already have a provider and they don't have mobile-friendly templates, which I'd be surprised, but if they don't and you want to use them but you don't want to switch over, you can use a service like MailChimp to build the email and then export that responsive HTML into the interface of your preferred provider and use that to send the email. Now I've got one little bonus tip for you, which is if you do have a store, if it's a physical store, it can be a bit cheeky, but you can provide in-store Wi-Fi with the caveat people have to give you customer data like email addresses or survey answers. Like if you answer this question about how your experience is today, you can use the Wi-Fi for an hour, like that sort of thing. Airports are very good at this. They always get me to give them my email address because I'm desperate to get on Facebook while I'm waiting at my gate. So again, this doesn't have to be scary. I think it's probably something you can do with normal internet providers, but I found this service called My Place Connect, which provides a service where they'll set it up for you, and it's only around 25 euros a month is where it starts. So yeah, we've got to the end and you've got lots of things to think about. You might decide to do all the things. This is my favorite meme ever. It makes me so excited. Do all the things. That's what I want everyone to do.
Sorry, Bridget. The last one that you say, My Place Connect, is specifically for providing Wi-Fi if you're a shop.
That is, they have like a specific service for that, yeah.
Okay.
Where it's geared up to enable you to collect information or ask a survey question or something like that. So you can say, like I know lots of places like Waterstones do this. You can say, access the Wi-Fi if you give us your email address, and as long as they're given the option to opt out of communications, there's nothing wrong with doing that. You can, in that way, you can get information from your customers who actually are coming into your store anyway and spending time there. So yeah.
Okay.
So I hope you want to do all the things, but you don't have to. No matter what your individual needs are, I'm just going to recap the most important things that you should remember. First of all, mobile is huge, in case you haven't figured that out by now. Yes. In fact, by this year, internet usage on mobile is predicted to overtake desktop internet usage, which does not surprise me at all given how much time I spend on my phone at home. I never use my laptop unless I have to do something that requires lots of typing. So you need a mobile strategy, and it's not as hard as it sounds. You can just start with a mobile-friendly website, and you can build up from there. And it's easier than you think. So go out and get started now. Thank you. I've got a little slide at the end here with a load of resources. I'm going to leave it on this because this is a nice sort of way to end. But when you get the deck, check out some of the links there, because I've got lots of articles that will help you with some of the more technical side of these things.
Great, great, Bridget. Thank you very much. And I think that when you'll tweet your deck, it will take like 6 hours to check all the links, as usually. That's the part that I love, because you can go deeper. I have several questions that I will shout to you immediately, and then I will ask help to Krista for additional ones. The first one is the following. Obviously, in the list of the platform which provides the possibility of having an app without being a coder, there is Apps Builder. This will be the addition. Okay, fantastic. But
absolutely, yeah.
One important thing is this one. I've been interviewing Seth Godin last year, I think. Seth Godin, super marketing guru, blah blah blah. And in one moment, I asked Seth, why you only doing your blog and you're not really doing, LinkedIn or Twitter is really not doing it. Google Plus is not. Facebook page is not. And he said, why should I do it? And when Seth Godin tell you something, you don't feel like saying, Seth, you didn't really understand anything. So I said, okay, well, I don't know, maybe because, well, you could get a bigger audience like that. And his theory finally is very simple, and say, I prefer to be the number one on one platform than not great in 20 platforms, okay? So the question here for you is, do you see any priority or any place where you absolutely have to be? Or from an SEO perspective, for instance, is better that you are everywhere because the juice, the SEO juice is better like that? What's your take on it?
When you say platforms, do you mean like social platforms or just all the things? So social platforms, if you are a local business, if you're trying to do local, then you must be on Google+. But I think that works through Google My Business. So if you set it up with Google My Business, you should have a Google+ profile as part of that. Because that's how they get that information into the search results. So that's essential. If you're not a local business and you're not worried about local search, then Google Plus may be less of a valuable platform for you, depending on what your audience is like. As we know, there's the sort of stereotype that it's all marketers who hang out on Google Plus. So, if that's your audience, great, go for it. For a more B2C business, Facebook's really important. And just depending on the type of thing that you sell, so if you sell really pretty clothes or something, then other social platforms like Pinterest can be really good. It's about understanding who your audience is and where they spend their time, and then prioritizing the places that they hang out, and making sure that with social media, the most important thing is understanding how normal people use it, and then using that in the way that you use it as well. So you shouldn't use Pinterest to, I don't know, put out like your latest ad campaign or something, unless you're targeting designers because it's so beautiful.
Sure. Right, I go to Christy if you have any question, and then I'll be back to you. I have a couple of things more to ask you.
Yeah, hey there, Bridget. So we heard a lot about this week. A lot of our speakers were talking about, being useful. So whether it was with an app or with a mobile site, it was making sure that all of the content, was really structured and meeting the exact needs of the mobile customer. In your experience, are there any tips that you can kind of give the small medium business to sort of help them to avoid just making their site and then making it the mobile, and maybe picking and choosing what content is going to be more valuable to like the mobile user versus a desktop user?
No, absolutely. I think this may not be quite the answer to what you're saying, but my boss, Will, so Will Critchlow, who some of you might be familiar with, he likes to say there's no such thing as mobile. And I sort of tease him that he says it just to be annoying to me. But what he actually means, and what I completely agree with, is that there's no such thing as mobile to the user. Especially like the sort of things I was talking about at the beginning, where more and more people just use a mobile device as their internet device. So it's a bit dangerous to make too big a distinction between content for mobile users versus content for desktop users. Ultimately, the goal would be that it's just content for people using the internet for what they need right then. I mean, some people would say, oh, mobile phones tend to be used on the go. That might be a rule of thumb, but actually, overall, it's shown that people are using their phones a lot at home and at work as well. So I think the most important thing is just making sure that the website is really usable on a mobile device, that people can give you their information, that they can complete checkout processes, that it's easy to use, and that any content you're creating that you want to get traction, that you want people to share on social or share with emails, is all accessible to mobile users.
Bridget, is Foursquare still alive? You talk about Foursquare. I thought was over. I don't know. It's still. Do you see? I mean, traction and data movement in Foursquare.
It's not talked about so much. What I've seen actually is people using the API for things. So, for instance, there's an app I like called City Mapper, and that uses Foursquare data for some of what they do, I think. It sort of says powered by Foursquare on there. So yes, it's a good point. So if I was going to prioritize one, Facebook is better as a check-in service because that's the one more people use. Again, it comes down to knowing your target market, though. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
and Foursquare can be, I think, it's more niche. So it's sort of something that restaurants really got on at one point. But yeah.
Got it. And you spoke about video briefly. I was very curious about that. What do you think? I mean, with videos, because often it's difficult to give a great experience on mobile if you have a lot of videos to show. Is there any suggest there? By the way, that there is this big discussion now about the fact that video snippets are gone, or maybe not. You don't know, but from the search, suddenly disappeared video snippets from like providers like Wistia or other guys like that, and basically Google show only YouTube video thumbnail. So what's the strategy could be there if you use video and you want to be on mobile?
I think, again, just realizing how quickly the technology is improving. So make sure that videos are viewable. I think it's HTML5 rather than Flash Player and stuff like that. I'm not the video expert on the technical side, and that's Phil, Phil Nottingham. So he would be able to tell you more about the technical ways you can make video more mobile friendly, but it is important to make sure people can, if they want to. Basically, the biggest problem people have on mobile with video is simply that if they're on 3G or if they're not on Wi-Fi, the connection can be poor. But like the new Apple iPhone 5 just has a 4G anyway, and I know like on mine even, which is like an older model, you can use it fairly easily. So everybody, the technology is changing so quickly. I think it's not. Don't let yourself be limited by what things are doing today,
Okay.
because in the very near future it will be
Different and maybe
better.
possible. Absolutely.
So don't feel that you can't have videos for mobile. In fact, Craig told me, my colleague who has all the latest iPhone products always, he told me that since getting the new phone with the 4G, he watched a lot more video because it
Okay.
was easy, because it was a high-speed connection. So our behaviors change as the technology changes.
Sure. Okay. We have just 1 minute left. Krista, final word.
Yeah, final words. Yeah, thank you, Bridget, for spending the time with us today and talking about everything. I think it gave, it talked exactly to, our small, medium business users who, yeah, don't know where to start. And I think you gave them some great tips. So thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. I've
Very
enjoyed.
good.
I hope it's helpful, and if anybody has more questions, feel free to tweet at me at Bridget Randolph. And I will use that account to tweet out the deck as well, and I guess you guys can pick it up from there.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bridget Randolph, Distilled. Say hi to all the Distilled friends. And Krista, I think Krista will meet in just 1 hour from now. We have the final speech from Dan Spicer from Hootsuite, another interesting talk. Very good. All right. See you later.
Okay. Bye.